Did you know that the conflict between Rome and Carthage was not just a war for power, but also a tale of pride, betrayal, and unbridled ambition? Two great powers of the Mediterranean faced off, each fighting for its own vision of expansion. Carthage, a city of innovation and trade, and Rome, an ascending empire, collided in an epic battle. In this video, we will take you on a journey through history, from the glorious founding of Carthage to its tragic destruction. We will not only reveal strategies and battles, but also the human stories that often get lost amid these events. Stay until the end to discover how Rome reduced not just a city, but a symbol of its time to ashes, and what lessons this rivalry teaches us to this day. Carthage, founded in the 9th century BC by Phoenician settlers from Tyre, was more than just a colony. It was the beginning of an empire that would mark history. According to legend, the city was built by the legendary Queen Dido, who negotiated land with the local inhabitants. Strategically located on the northern coast of Africa, it provided access to safe ports and the most important trade routes in the Mediterranean. Carthage's rise was driven by its position as a trade center. Metals, spices, and textiles flowed through its markets, while its naval fleet dominated the connections between East and West. This economic power led to the development of a wealthy elite that not only governed the city, but also established a complex administrative network. However, success brought rivals, Greek colonies and later Rome, which viewed Carthage as an emerging threat. Culturally, Carthage was a melting pot of influences. Its Phoenician roots remained, but exchange with other cultures produced a unique identity. Artifacts such as decorated ceramics and inscriptions showcase the wealth of this period. However, Carthage's ability to adapt and grow transformed it into an inevitable player in the upcoming conflicts. How would the city face the challenges posed by powerful rivals? Carthage's economic rise began with its control of strategic trade routes that spanned the Mediterranean. Precious metals, grains, and exotic goods passed through its ports, enriching its coffers. But the real secret to its success was its powerful fleet. With innovative ships and fearless sailors, Carthage dominated the seas and protected its trade routes from rival powers such as the Greeks and Etruscans. The establishment of trading colonies along the coasts of North Africa, Spain, and southern Italy further strengthened its influence. These colonies served not only as trading posts, but also as bastions of the city's military power. However, as Carthage expanded its domain, it attracted the attention of equally ambitious rivals, especially Rome, which was beginning its own expansionist trajectory. Carthage's trade network connected markets from the Middle East to the shores of Gibraltar, making the city a center of cultural and economic exchange. But with power and wealth came conflicts. Tensions with Greeks and Romans were inevitable, as Carthage sought to maintain its position as the dominant trading power. How would the city respond to the growing Roman threat? The rivalry between Carthage and Rome reached its peak with the First Punic War, a conflict for control of Sicily. This strategically located island was key to important Mediterranean trade routes. While Rome utilized its land military strength, Carthage protected its commercial interests with an experienced fleet. The clash began with a series of naval battles, testing the skill and creativity of both sides. Roman innovations, such as the introduction of the corvus, a boarding bridge that turned ships into floating battlefields, secured decisive victories. However, Carthage demonstrated remarkable resilience, employing experienced commanders and fighting with determination. The conflict dragged on for more than 20 years, draining resources from both powers and culminating in a peace treaty that granted Rome control over Sicily. This war was more than a territorial dispute. It laid the groundwork for future confrontations. Rome's ambition grew, while Carthage focused on restoring its power. What strategies would both powers adopt in the coming years to intensify this rivalry? Hannibal Barca, the legendary Carthaginian general, made history with his bold plan to cross the Alps with elephants, a maneuver that shocked the world. His campaign in Italy was marked by brilliant battles, including the overwhelming victory at Cannae, which brought Rome to the brink of collapse. Yet Hannibal's success was not solely due to his military prowess. His ability to forge alliances and exploit Roman weaknesses made his strategy even more extraordinary. Despite his victories, Hannibal was unable to take Rome definitively. The city demonstrated impressive resilience, reorganizing its forces and planning a counteroffensive. While Hannibal tried to consolidate his position in Italy, Rome, with strategic cunning, prepared its counterattack. This clash revealed the strength and determination of both sides, willing to fight to the limit. Hannibal's campaign had profound impacts on history. It forced Rome to rethink its defensive strategies and strengthen its military power. At the same time, the prolonged conflict drained Carthage's resources, making it more vulnerable to future assaults. What would be the consequences of this war for Carthage's fate? Publius Cornelius Scipio, known as Scipio Africanus, was the brilliant strategist who changed the course of the war. Instead of confronting Hannibal directly in Italy, Scipio decided to attack Carthage's resource bases. His campaign in Spain, a vital region for supplying Carthage, was a masterstroke in the art of war. This move forced Hannibal to abandon Italy and return to Africa to defend his homeland. The decisive battle took place at Zama, a true turning point in history. Scipio employed innovative tactics to neutralize Hannibal's elephants and destabilize his troops. The victory at Zama was not just a military triumph, but a milestone in Rome's rise as the greatest power in the Mediterranean. This confrontation ended the Second Punic War and ushered in a new era of Roman dominance. Scipio's success was not based solely on his military genius. His diplomacy with the Numidians, former allies of Carthage, secured a crucial advantage for Rome. With this victory, Carthage was forced to adapt to a new reality. How would the once powerful city react to this overwhelming defeat? Following the defeat at Zama, Carthage was compelled to accept harsh peace terms that drastically reduced its power. The city could maintain only 10 ships and was forbidden from waging war without Rome's permission. Furthermore, it had to pay enormous war reparations, which severely affected its economy. These restrictions were designed to prevent any possibility of Carthage re-emerging as a threat. The economic consequences were devastating. Without a powerful fleet and burdened with payments to Rome, Carthage had to drastically cut back its trade network. Still, the city showed remarkable resilience, focusing on agriculture and local trade to sustain its economy. This spirit of resistance reflected the character of the Carthaginians, but Roman vigilance allowed little room for a full recovery. The peace terms were not merely a punishment. They symbolized Carthage's defeat and Rome's triumph. Yet even under these restrictions, the city maintained a trace of its former greatness. How would Carthage confront this new reality and find its place in history? Even with severe restrictions, Carthage demonstrated a remarkable capacity for recovery. Utilizing its fertile lands and investing in agricultural production, the city became one of the leading exporters of grains, olive oil, and other products. This economic recovery proved that, even under Roman dominance, Carthage could still thrive and find new paths for growth. The creation of a regional trade network strengthened its position. Although it was no longer a naval power, Carthage managed to establish itself as an influential commercial center. However, this new growth rekindled Rome's distrust, which feared that Carthage could rise again as a threat. This scenario of escalating tensions paved the way for renewed confrontation between the two powers. Culturally and socially, Carthage experienced a renaissance. New public buildings were erected, and the city continued to be a hub of art and education. This renewal demonstrated the unwavering spirit of the Carthaginians. But with the city's growth, a new risk emerged. How long would Rome tolerate this recovery before intervening again? Cato the Elder, an influential Roman senator, became the chief advocate for the definitive destruction of Carthage. His famous speech, which always ended with the phrase "Carthago delenda est," Carthage must be destroyed, was not just a warning but a call to action. Cato argued that Carthage's economic recovery and strategic location represented a constant threat to Roman security. His words echoed in the Senate. Reports of Carthage's growing prosperity and alleged military activities fueled fears of a new conflict. This rhetoric not only mobilized political elites but also swayed public opinion in Rome, increasing pressure for an inevitable confrontation. Cato's insistence eventually led to an escalation of tension. As Rome prepared for a new clash, Carthage sought to preserve its sovereignty. However, with the rise in hostilities, war seemed inevitable. What measures would Rome take to ensure its supremacy once and for all? The Third Punic War began with a Roman provocation. Carthage was forced to surrender all its weapons. But when Rome demanded that the Carthaginians abandon their city, they vehemently refused. This final affront triggered fierce resistance, culminating in a siege that lasted 3 years. As the Roman legions besieged the city walls, Carthage mobilized all its resources. Women and children helped manufacture weapons, and the defenders fought with unwavering determination. However, despite their courage, the situation became increasingly desperate. Ultimately, the Romans broke through the defenses and launched a devastating attack. The siege of Carthage was not just a military conflict, but a symbolic event, the struggle for the survival of a civilization. The definitive defeat marked the end of an era and consolidated Roman supremacy in the Mediterranean. But what would remain of Carthage's legacy after this tragic chapter? In 146 BC, the fate of Carthage was sealed in a brutal manner. After years of siege, Roman troops invaded the city and completely destroyed it. Thousands of Carthaginians were killed or enslaved, and the streets that once represented wealth and power were reduced to ruins. Rome's victory was not only military but also political. With the total annihilation of Carthage, Rome eliminated any future threat. According to legend, the Romans even spread salt over the city's fields to make them infertile, a symbolic act that sealed the definitive end of Carthage. But with the destruction of Carthage, a vast cultural legacy was also lost. Temples, libraries, and artworks that preserved the history of a great civilization were obliterated. This event marked not just the end of Carthage, but the beginning of a new era of Roman hegemony. What lessons can we draw from this tragic history? The story of Rome and Carthage is a timeless lesson on power, ambition, and the tragedies of rivalry. The fall of Carthage illustrates the consequences of a conflict that spanned centuries and ended with the complete destruction of a civilization. However, even after its end, the Carthaginian legacy lives on in the memory of humanity. This rivalry serves not only as a warning against the dangers of the relentless pursuit of power, but also inspires through the resilience of those involved. It shows that progress often arises from conflict, but the costs should never be ignored. Don't forget to check out our latest video on this theme. It will provide even more details about the fascinating world of the great powers of antiquity. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Which lesson from this story inspires you the most?